Hey everybody, V-Spot Joel here, and today we're going to talk about 5 popular sub-ohm clearomizers on the market. Kind of the one that started it all, the Aspire Atlantis. We're also going to talk about the Kangertech Subtank Nano, the Delta 2, the Horizon-Tech Arctic, and the Sense Herakles, which we think are kind of the 5 most popular sub-ohm clearomizers on the market today. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about the Subtank Mini? I like that better. Well, we're excluding that one because we really want to focus on clearomizers that use primarily prefab coil heads. So I know the Delta 2 has an RBA head, but it doesn't come with it like the Mini. So we're just going to pretend like that doesn't exist for this review. And what we'll do is we'll go through the specs of each and then talk about some of the pros and cons for each of them. So we'll start with the Aspire Atlantis, which was the first kind of mainstream sub-ohm clearomizer on the market. This one that I have here is actually taller than you'll notice the one in the box, and the reason for that is that this has a 2 milliliter capacity, and I think it might even be as high as 2.3 milliliters, so you get a little bit extra beyond 2 mil out of this. But this replacement 5 mil tank really hits the sweet spot in terms of capacity, I think, because all of these can burn through juice reasonably quickly. So having that 5 mil tank on there is super nice. It is easy to refill. There's a lot of clearance in here when you disassemble the bottom. It's not hard with any type of dropper or unicorn bottle. Oh, you don't need a needle tip bottle to fill this, is effectively what I guess I'm saying there. So it's super easy to refill. It's not a game of trying to find something with a tip small enough to fit into the space between the airflow tube and the tank itself. It's all stainless steel Pyrex glass construction, or at least it is now. Originally, when these were released, Aspire was putting some brass components in there, and there was kind of a public backlash because they had said it was all stainless steel construction, and they had made a public statement saying, okay, we are going to switch the construction to all stainless steel, so going forward we're getting rid of the brass. Whether or not they actually did that, I don't know. The other pro with this right now is that you can also get organic cotton coils with this. So organic cotton is going to give you a purer flavor. You're going to get the juice flavor more predominant than a cotton taste. And the con side of the organic cotton coils for the Atlantis right now is that 1, they are hard to find in stock, and 2, they have a little bit longer break-in period. I've found that it takes about 24 hours for them to really hit their stride in terms of flavor production. The other issue with this is the airflow is not the highest out of all of these. So if you're going to a higher VG juice, you can get dry hits out of this, especially if you're a chain vapor, though I do consistently run a 3070 in here without too many problems. But I can get it to dry hit if I'm really pulling on it frequently. The next one I want to talk about is the Kangertech Subtank Nano. This one, like I said before, only has the OCC coil. There is no RBA deck available for this. Kangertech's organic cotton coils actually come in 2 resistances. They come in 0.5 and 1.2 ohm. The 0.5 ohm operating range is recommended between 15 and 30 watts. The 1.2 ohm is 12 to 25 watts. So this is good flexibility for somebody that may not have a really current box mod that can fire at low resistances. It's only recently that that's kind of become commonplace. So having that 1.2 ohm option is good because you can use it with like your original E-Leaf iStick and similar box mods, and you don't have to necessarily worry about finding the right battery on a mech mod that can handle the current draw, or finding a box mod that can fire at that low resistance. So it just makes life simple, so you have good selection there. And personally, I think out of the Subtank lineup using the OCC coil, that this one has the best flavor using that. Now, I'm not talking about the RBA builds because I loved the original Subtank. That was my favorite in terms of flavor and vapor production. out of the Subtank line. The Subtank Mini is a nice middle ground in my opinion, and the Nano, I think due to that short air tube in the center here, I think that's what lends it to its punchy flavor. So that OCC coil really rocks on this thing. Now this does have a 3 milliliter capacity, which if you're running up near 30 watts is, I don't know, 30 to 60 minutes of chain vaping. I can drain this tank of juice in no time flat, and that means then you have to refill it. This one is a little bit harder to refill than the Atlantis, not because of an aim or anything like that, but the airflow tube actually does sit down inside the center of the coil. And so what happens is if you fill this too high with juice, when you go to put the coil in, it's going to displace that juice, and some of it will go back up into the middle, and then you'll end up with it dripping outside of the airflow hole on the front. So you just got to be careful when you refill that one. The cons on this, it's the only Subtank model without an RBA build, as we said, and the drip tip on this sucker gets hot. If you're running this at high wattage, this thing retains a lot of heat. So I definitely consider that to be not so great, but the flavor is amazing. I really do. I actually like the Nano better than I like the original Atlantis, but that's just my personal opinion. Please don't send us hate mail. This is all subjective. Next on the list is the Joytech Delta 2. So this one was kind of like, hey everybody, we're gonna step the game up, not just 30 watts. Our operating range is gonna be from 20 to 45 watts. Joytech also has in this a unique coil design that you don't get with anyone else. So they've got this metal band that goes around, and there are 4 slots for cotton exposure there. And in fact, that's not even cotton, I don't believe. I think it is some type of ceramic material. So the wick, to be more precise, you can control the surface area exposure there. So you can kind of dial it in for your personal tastes and preferences. In theory, if you're running a higher VG juice, you want more surface area exposed. If you're running a higher PG juice, you want less. Or maybe you don't. If you really like the flavor pop of PG, which is pretty darn good, you might just leave it all the way open because you really enjoy that full flavor that you get out of it. This one, again, they say the max range is 45 watts, but certainly there are enough people online that say, oh yeah, I can vape this at 50, 55 watts all day, no problem. And certainly this one is pretty good at avoiding dry hits. Some cons with this, again, you've got this great coil that is really good at wicking the liquid and giving you great flavor and vapor, but that comes at a price, and that is that the airflow tube down the center of this thing has to fit that coil. So refilling this, if you don't have a needle tip bottle, it's really a challenge. And then Joytech made it further difficult by these little windows. They're not full panes, so you've got minimal space that you're trying to work like a needle in there to refill it, and it's hard to see where the level is. So it's kind of a pain in the ass to refill, but it is a pretty good device. It's the only one out of the group that doesn't have a wide bore drip tip. It's got a standard one, but I think that narrow bore is what lends itself to pretty good flavor production. And it does have the Cylon style airflow holes at the bottom that when you screw it back on, they automatically close up and seal that up. You create a nice vacuum as you're tightening it down. And it is on both sides, and it's all or nothing, but it does lock into position, so you know either it's wide open or it's fully closed. There's no OCC option on this, and the other thing that I dislike about this is you can't take the top off, so fully cleaning it out, there's not really a way to do that. I just run it under the faucet and then let it air dry before I use it again. Next on the list, the Horizon-Tech Arctic. This sucker is kind of crazy. There are 5 different coil options, really 2 coil designs. There's the BTC coil, which is the bottom turbine coil, and that comes in 3 resistances of 1.2, 0.5, and 0.2 ohms. And then there's the bottom turbine dual coil, and that's 0.5 ohms and 0.2 ohms respectively on those. And that 0.2 ohm bottom turbine dual coil has a recommended operating range of 30 to 100 watts. I have not used anything at a higher resistance on this than a 0.5 ohm, but I can tell you from experience, even at 30 watts on the 0.5 ohm coils, you get hardly any vapor production. Flavor is maybe hinted at, but to get this thing to sing, you really got to get it up like 60, 70, 80 watts before you start getting good flavor and vapor production out of it. And the vapor production on this thing is almost as good as a dripper. Same with the flavor. It works exceptionally well with high VG liquids. I put 1090 in all the time and never a dry hit. The other thing is that if we compare the bottom of this coil to an Atlantis coil. So on the Atlantis, you only get one hole going through the bottom of the coil for airflow. On this, you've got 2. And so that extra airflow plus this added extra surface area here on the coil itself where you've got high surface area for wicking into the organic cotton, and these are all organic cotton. There is no other wicking option on these. It is amazing. It just never a dry hit. So that combination of airflow and surface area for the cotton just contributes to just huge clouds of vapor. This one's a little bit easier to refill than the Joytech. You can refill it with a dripper. You don't necessarily need a unicorn or needle tip bottle or anything like that. I don't have any problems refilling that. And this one does fully disassemble. If you're feeling ambitious, I've never taken the top off personally, but it can be done. This has also 4 airflow, equally spaced airflow holes on this, Cylon style, and it swivels all the way around. There's no locking position on this, which I dislike a little bit. I do prefer to be able to dial in my airflow and feel the clicks so I don't actually have to look at it. I am a lazy American, what are you gonna do? And capacity on this is 3 milliliters, and I did not mention the capacity on the Delta 2, my bad. That one's a little bit higher, it's 3.5, but they're all roughly about 3 milliliters, except for the Atlantis originally, which was only 2. What else? Insane liquid consumption on this Arctic. Absolutely insane. Same thing with the battery. I go through a tank and a single battery in the SX Mini running at 60 watts on this thing in about an hour throughout the day. So keep that in mind if you're looking at one of these higher wattage Clearomizers. You are going to go through a lot of juice and a lot of batteries. And the last one I want to talk about is the Sense Herakles. Again, this is another high wattage Clearomizer. All organic cottons. Right now I've only seen 0.6 ohm coils. There is apparently a 0.2 ohm version, though I've not seen them available for sale anywhere. And if we take a look at the, pardon me, the base of this, this sucker is even crazier on the airflow, though it doesn't have as much surface area as the Arctic for wicking the cotton. So I think the combination of airflow on this and then the smaller surface area for the cotton is what contributes to the lower wattage. The recommended range for this is 50 to 75 watts, which is not low power by any stretch, but it certainly doesn't compare to the 100 watts of the Arctic. However, I think the flavor production on this one is much better. This one also is the only of the group that actually has a copper center pin in the 510 connector. which is there for better thermal, or not thermal, electrical conductivity. I suppose it's better thermal conductivity as well. Again, there's no dry hits on this thing ever. I can run MaxFiji and this just like the Arctic. And in a pinch, this will actually take the Atlantis coils, though you can't run the Atlantis coils at the wattage that these coils, that the Sense Herakles coils are designed for. So you want to keep it below 30 watts if you do fall back to using an Atlantis coil in this. The other thing that I really like about this is the Delrin lined drip tip. Stays super cool, so you can chain vape off of this and the tip never gets hot like the Subtank Nano. The Delta 2 also is Delrin lined, and I didn't give it a fair shake, but it's a smaller airflow, it's a smaller diameter for punchier flavor, but it also doesn't get too hot. The cons on this thing, it's limited coil options. You don't have the versatility that you do with the Arctic. Though if you've got a high wattage box mod that can fire at low resistance, it doesn't really matter. You're good to go. There is no like 1.2 ohm option. Thinner juices I've had kind of leak out of this by leaving it upright all night, which is just stupidity on my part. You should really just take the drip tip off and turn it upside down, because higher PG juices are going to be thinner, and the cotton is so porous and the airflow is so good, and there's no way to block off the airflow on the bottom of this, so potentially you could have juice leak out. And this is hard to see, but the airflow is asymmetrical and it's behind these bands and you have these gaps. I'm really impatient when it comes to vaping, so for all of these, I generally put my finger over the airflow holes after I've just filled them for the first time, and then I draw on them like normal with my finger held over, and that vacuum pressure helps wick the e-liquid from the tank into the cotton. Well, because these bands have gaps that go all the way around, it's really tough. I try to maybe sandwich it like that and block it off completely, but you're always going to get a little bit of airflow. So prodding this one along to get it wicked, you just can't do it like you can the others. Again, insane liquid and battery consumption. And then that airflow is tough to see. It does click it nice into position, but once it's clicked, I gotta always hold it up to the light and take a look and see which holes are aligned, and it is asymmetrical in there. And my final gripe on this is just general aesthetics. Performance is fantastic, but the gaskets in this thing are kind of lopsided, so when it compresses down when you tighten it, it just always looks lopsided. It looks like at every joint stuff's going at a different angle, and most people may not even notice, but that really drives me nuts. And then like the finish on this Delrin bottom piece, it keeps getting burrs and stuff. It looks like it wasn't finished or something. Really minor nitpicky stuff. Like I said, it still vapes awesome. In fact, I think this is probably my favorite in terms of flavor. It's not as much clouds as the Arctic, but the flavor is still fantastic. So with that gallop through the landscape, I think we've pretty much covered everything we set out to cover here. Again, I don't want to rank these 1 through 5 in terms of best to worst, because they're all just different, and they're all good, and they're all good for different purposes. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these. I'd hate to steer anyone away from one that they might think is right for them. But if you're looking for really big clouds and really big flavor without having to go to a dripper, certainly the Herakles and the Arctic stand alone. And then these three kind of stand off to the other side, and you have a lot more options in the Subtank line. So if you're looking for flexibility with an RBA build, you've got other options in the Subtank lineup. Likewise with the Joytech, you've got an RBA option there, but that is extra and sold separately. And the Atlantis, you don't have the RBA option, but it's the original, and I think all of the rest of these probably came about by people looking at this and going, oh, we got to come up with something to compete with that. So all great choices, can't go wrong with any of them. I hope this was informative, and if you're deciding to buy one, we'd surely appreciate it if you took a look at vspotbapes.com, and see if we could meet your needs. So with that, I bid you adieu and say vape on.